All right. Good morning, everyone. I'm Vince Devall at the Eagle Homes podcast today, and I'm here with Mr.
Brad Brewer. Who are we with? Oh yeah, Coldwell Banker on Eagle Homes team.
Not epic.
I am struggling this morning, but I'm gonna power through.
He is. Brad had a long family-oriented weekend, I want to call it.
What family weekend? Awesome.
And the guy's so far behind, he hasn't even muted his phone
I
yet.
haven't moved my phone. No, went an awesome weekend. Problem is the middle of the weekend. Shout out to Mark and Melissa from Buzzed. Mark took me to this bourbon tasting with him because he's always looking for more bourbons for their bar.
Like it.
Likes to mix it up, get some cool stuff in there, which he's really good at. So invited me 160 some possible bourbons to taste. I didn't taste a third of that because if I would have,
He would not be sitting here today.
I would not be here today. But I did taste enough to where because I'm over 40, I've probably got what's considered a 2-day hangover.
Yes.
It was truly for business purposes.
Yeah, help. I like it. All right. So today, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be talking about questions to ask a real estate agent when interviewing them to list your home. This is key. I think a lot of times agents go with that, someone that's referred to them or a friend or family member, but even then, I think there's a lot of value add questions that you should be asking so that everyone's on the same page on what the expectations are throughout the whole process. So, let's get started here. And, Brad, I'm going to start with you. If you're interviewing an agent and you're to pick one question, what's going to be that first question you're going to ask them?
I would ask about marketing.
Marketing. Okay. So elaborate.
So I would say, what is your marketing process for my home? What are the unique marketing features or steps that you think my home would require? Because there are standard marketing steps that we do, or any agent does, that quite frankly a monkey could do. That's not insult the monkeys, by the way. Like for instance, like if you put an MLS, that's a form of marketing,
Right?
Because MLS sends it out to all the syndicated websites. It sends it out to all the broker websites. It sends it out to any website that basically has an MLS feed, your team website, individual website, whatever. That's a little bit different in Wisconsin, but we don't need to get into that. So MLS, of course, your yard sign for local drive-by traffic, things like that. Photography, obviously, what is the first showing? The first showing's online. So, but then there's things beyond that.
Hold on, let's stop right there. Photography, real quick. Sorry.
Sure.
If the agent says I'm going to take the photos with myself with my smartphone, run. I mean, how many times have you looked online, you're like, man, those photos just don't look good. It's because they probably took it with their smartphone. Or, maybe they got a 1980s digital camera when they first came out with 6 megapixels. I don't know if we're 6 megapixels, but make sure we got professional photography. Go ahead. Sorry, Brad.
That was a good pause. I think professional photography is super important. I mean, granted, do the phones, the iPhones, the Androids have the technology to take really good quality photos? Absolutely. Just as good as maybe those professional cameras. Probably to a degree, yes, if you know how to do it.
Yeah.
Still takes some knowledge. And that's kind of what my other point is. It's even if an agent has a professional camera, and Vince actually has one that broadcasts this podcast. But he doesn't go and still doesn't think he's a photographer and does the photos because there's angles, there's having the ability to edit them. And I am not a professional photographer. And I can tell, even if an agent says to me, well, I have a really good quality camera for this, I can still tell when an agent does it versus somebody that does it as their profession. So that to me is super critical marketing that I'm not going to try and do because I suck at taking pictures. Even if I think I was good. So I guess I would ask this because I do know a couple agents out there that it's like one of their passion hobbies. Cool. All right. You probably have the skill set. But a lot of them don't, and they just think the equipment's gonna get them, and it's just not the case. Sorry.
Well, and I think at that point in time, that's when you ask them to share their portfolio,
Yeah.
right? If they go, hey, go look at my last 5 listings
Mhm.
and tell me what you think of the photos, and you go, yeah, they work, then great.
Yeah.
That's perfectly fine if that's something that they do as a side gig, right? So completely acceptable.
Yeah. And I'm not gonna go into the details of how we do it, because we gotta keep some stuff private to our team. And not just throw it out there for every other agent to
Yeah, whatever.
R&D, rip off and
Cool.
duplicate. But also, I'll just give this, there's 81% of buyers come from 2 places. Online, which we just really heavily covered through photography and the websites and social
Yeah.
media. So we didn't say social media, but that's another place you market it. The other is actually real estate agents. So I know we do a great job of actually marketing our listings to other agents. So that's 29%, online is 52%. That covers 81% of where buyers find homes. Right there, online and actually agents. So
Yep.
for all this talk about, this tech stuff or agents needed, yeah, still comes from agents. How does it come from agents? Well, really good listing agents market to other agents. How they do that? Well, you guys figure that out, because I'm sharing that one.
Well, but let's go into that. Like if they go,
I can do that
I
myself.
market to other agents, ask a question on how they do it, right?
Yeah.
They should be able to, say, hey, this is how we do it. This is what we do. This is what it looks like, right? So, dig deeper. Don't just say, hey, we do social media ads. Well, what's that mean for me?
Yeah.
We can sit here and show you if we run a social media ad, how many reaches it gets, how many clicks it gets, views, how many times they open a picture, things like that. So dig deeper into when they say marketing and they go through all these tangents of social media, photography,
Mhm.
YouTube, ask a question and find out what and how it translates into the sale of your home. So
Yeah.
like marketing is key. I then would go into communication, right? What's the communication look like with that agent? Are they, giving you weekly
That's
follow-ups?
impressive. I didn't know that. And that was giving me my number too.
Oh, really? See, we haven't even talked about this today.
I know.
Communication, I think from an agent standpoint, we're going to ask the question of how often you want to be communicated with
Mhm.
and in what form, right? Or do you prefer today? A lot of people are like, just text me. I don't give a crap about anything else. Just shoot me a text.
Yeah.
A lot of people want to have that phone call. Maybe they're a little bit old school. They want to have that one-on-one conversation. And then some of them are just like, hey, throw it in my email box. When I get to it, I'll get to it, right? So what is that form of communication and how much data do they want?
Mhm.
I mean, we have a really nice template that we send out on Mondays to our sellers that says, hey, your home reached this many people. We had this many viewings. We had this many showings, right? This is the feedback. Well, what is that communication? How does it look like with that agent? And once again, ask them to show you,
Yep.
okay? Because we get busy, we can talk a big game, but if there's not a system or process in place, we can't make it happen.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly. That's the communication that's I'd say next to actually getting the marketing done is number 2. Because as a seller, you're not gonna see everything that's going on. Honestly, it's different websites too. I don't know this because I actually don't look up Zillow, but one of the agents on our team told me this, which I did not know. A lot of websites you can see how many people are viewing it on that website.
mhm.
Zillow, I guess, only shows you how many searches are saved. So the data can come in different forms, but we can see shares and we do it through social media, views and stuff like that. I don't know, can we do it on YouTube? I actually don't know that.
Oh, we
You
can
know?
see how many times it was viewed on YouTube. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, so actually,
Or how
you're
many
right, we
plays
can.
or reaches it
That's
hit.
right, I knew that. We actually get good views through YouTube, but not just putting it on our YouTube channel. We attach the YouTube link to various other social media and other types of media forms, bringing it back to YouTube. So,
Correct.
I always tell a client, usually, depending on the property, and I don't know if this is a good number in all markets, but I'd say most listings, I usually say we'll have about 10,000 eyes online on
Oh,
your listing
uh,
within 1 week, or
at least.
probably not even a whole week,
No.
probably in a matter of days.
Yeah, that's between social media, YouTube advertising, Instagram advertising, and then agent reach, right?
Yeah, it's probably actually more than that. I would just think it's a conservative, realistic number that I know we can hit just all the different places we market it
Right.
outside of just sticking it in minutes.
So communication, like, we're talking about how that communication happens,
Yep.
what it looks like, and then what the expectation is. That is something that should be set on day one. Like,
Mhm.
hey, this is what we're gonna do. This is how many times we're gonna do it.
Yep.
This is when we're gonna do it, right? But then comes a part of communication with you and that agent about price. I
Yeah.
think that communication is huge. I think there's, us as agents have done our due diligence
Mhm.
on what the comparable market is
Mhm.
to sell your home, but you have a number in your head on what that price should be.
Absolutely.
Okay. So there has to be some conversation on how that agent, you should ask the agent, hey, how'd you come up with that number of listing my home for $300,000? Well, here are the comps. Make sure they didn't pull it out of there. I give a great example. We had an agent write an offer a couple weeks ago now on a house, um, that, sorry, Brett, doing some Google research for some
Mhm.
reason, on a house that's,
It's going to be relevant to our conversation.
all right.
So,
So listed a house, wrote an offer on a house, reached out to the agent, said, hey, where'd you get the comps? I don't know. I just pulled the number out of the air. He might have said ass. I don't know, but very, that's a relevant question. Like, how did you come up with that number? And then,
I actually heard the funniest one the other day. Sorry. This wasn't my client. I was talking to another agent and they're like, I asked the client why they come up with the number they want to list their house for. And they're like, well, my uncle said it's probably worth that. Oh, well, what's he like in real estate? Nope.
yeah. So like,
He's probably correct.
so how'd they come up with that number, and then what the expectation is if we don't hit that number? Because if those two numbers are off, like, what's the game plan? Like, hey, if we're off, what's our game plan to get closer to that? And then, do you want to list as a seller? You need to have an idea in your head, and you should have this conversation with your agent.
So the question is you as the seller to that potential listing agent is, what is your pricing strategy?
Yep.
Like, and as an agent, we should explain how we're coming up with the pricing. And I mean, our pricing strategy is pretty consistent, I think, across the team. We have 3 pricing strategies,
Yeah.
right? You can cover those because I know you know them very
Well, yeah. So, we're going to price it under market value.
Actually, there's 4. You have 4.
I got 4, right? Under market value, that's going to ideally draw a ton of interest, potentially get you right at market value. So let's say house is 400,000 and we listed at 380. Maybe we get up to 400 with those bidding wars, okay? Or we listed at market value at 400,000 and we get, 2 or 3 offers to get you a little bit over that 400,000 because we've created still that competition. Or we list it for 20,000 over market value, and your house sits and waits for that one special buyer that is looking to buy your house. Okay. If we get that one special buyer, great. Maybe they go in and give you 410 for it. Maybe they give you 420, but that's the risk you're going to take. And then the last one is our cash buyer. We work with a lot of cash buyer programs that come in and say, hey, if you want to be done with this house next week, I can have it done. We can get you a cash buyer. But those are usually like high buyers that are going to come in and say, you want to see your house is worth 400. We're going to give you 300. They give you about 60 to 75% of your home's value. And then they turn around and either wholesale it, fix it up and flip it, whatever it might be. Depends on the condition of the house, but you're also taking a hell of a lot less. So 4 different pricing strategies that we use, but what is your agent's pricing strategy in today's market?
Yeah, so pricing strategy is actually super critical. I think I think we're doing these in pretty good order of importance.
Yeah.
Marketing, communication, and then pricing strategy. You have the next one because otherwise I do have another one, but
Go ahead. I'll let you go. I got one more, but I want to see. Let's see where we land.
Go ahead, because I'm trying to decide how to say this without making about 300 some people mad at me.
All right. I think then it comes into the expectation of moving, like what happens with showings? What happens with what's the expectation once my house hits the market? How are we handling showings?
Yep,
How are we handling feedback?
yep.
And then how are we handling offers? Okay.
I'm glad we do it first because this is actually appropriate order.
I figured I know where you're going. So how are we handling once our house is listed? How are you going to handle, you know, the communication? We've already talked about how they're handling the communication, but how are we handling the showings? Who's responsible for that? Do I need to be gone for the whole weekend?
Mhm.
Do I need to remove my pets, my kids? Yes, for the record. Yeah, you can leave your hamsters, gerbils, snakes, things like that, anything that's caged. But ideally, you want to get rid of take your dogs away, unless you can kennel them and, in a small room or in the bedroom or something where they're not going to be, running around and being a nuisance to people that are trying to walk through your home. So,
That communication stuff comes into play with the showing schedules and how to communicate with the showings too.
yep,
You may mention one. We love our four-legged furry friends, but
or
what could
two-legged.
be everybody that knows you knows your dog wouldn't bite a soul, but there's still that risk there. So unfortunately, the dogs just can't be out. So it's like,
Right,
what's happening to the dog during the showings? Most time it's like, even if your dog's never in a kennel, unfortunately, it's a kennel situation when you can't be there to take the dog
right,
out.
right.
The other is that I run into a lot. I'm very conscious of that. I always ask the seller when they have smaller children. Small children don't are often. I mean, I know kids have bedtimes as early as 6 or 7 p.m.
Yeah,
at certain ages because of the time they're getting up in the morning because of the parents' work schedule, right? So, how late do you want showings here? Because especially during the summer when it's daylight till 9 o'clock, you could have people in your home till 9 o'clock. Well, that just doesn't work for some people. And that's okay.
right, right,
So we have to work around that as well because it's great. I know you need to sell your house and it might be short-lived, but kids don't care. Kids are very schedule oriented,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
That's another thing. What else on that? Anything else on
No,
the,
well, and then it goes into, and I think this might have been where you were going, but the communication on how we're going to, handle offers, things like that. I'm not sure. Is that where you were headed?
nope,
Okay.
my next one is,
Okay. So let's talk
my
about
next
that.
one is actually, yes, communication of it, but negotiating.
Negotiating. Okay. So
Negotiating offers.
multiple offers on the table.
Mhm.
How is your agent going to handle that? And, this topic came up today because very, very bad agent communication on handling multiple offers over the weekend. Not the first time for anybody on our team. Shouldn't be a surprise. We can't control what other agents do and how they communicate. But we don't want to be that team.
Right.
So go ahead.
So I think
Negotiating offers.
so as the seller, ask your agent, how do you plan to handle negotiations? Especially, it's easy if it's one-on-one typically. You got one offer, one negotiation. But I think where agents fail, right, is how they handle multiple offers and advising their client for their best interest. And what I mean by that is, yeah, I think one of our agents had a bad experience where I don't think the listing agent was appropriately advising them how to handle a multiple offer situation. Whereas I had an amazing experience this weekend. I put out communication. I kind of let the listing agent know where my buyers were based on what we were offering and things we would be willing to potentially do if needed. And this is a highest and best request. And instead of the agent saying, well, this is just, we're going to take what you got, by me communicating to this agent and saying, hey, here's we'll call this our highest and best, but they really like the house and it's super, super close. If it's worth it to your sellers, we may be able to adjust some things, not just price either, but like some contingencies too.
Right.
And that's what she called me, amazingly while I was doing that bourbon tasting and said, hey, you mentioned in your email, you might be willing to do this and this. Can you do that? Because your offer is really good. It's one of the best, and this is great because she didn't disclose what the other offers were. She just said, you're really right there. Can you get to where you're going, where you said you could potentially get? Yeah, let me call my client real quick. Called him. He's like, yep, that's fine. Called right back, said, let me know how you want to do it. Ended
Yeah.
up doing a counter offer on it, and we got the deal.
Yeah.
And I think that listing agent did an amazing job in that case. And doing took a little bit more effort, didn't just go this like, well, it's highest and best and blah, 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 whatever. But actually that additional, again, comes back to the communication piece,
Yeah.
additional communication with the seller, my additional communication with my buyer. My knowledge of what my buyer was willing to do when we submitted the offer, and probably her knowledge on what her seller really wanted
Yeah.
and what was important to her seller. So I think those were all, it was a great culmination of I can't believe I used the word culmination, by the way, that's impressive.
For a Monday.
For a Monday. It was a great collaboration, actually, is a better word for it, of two agents, both looking out for best interests of their client,
Yeah.
but our job ultimately is to get deals done.
Right.
And I think we both did that, so I'd love to announce who that agent is, but I'll
Yeah, let's wait.
kudos to her on that.
Yeah, nice job. And that comes to it as a seller, keep in mind what's in front of you is not always the final offer, right? There's things out there, called multiple counter offers or multiple counter, right? So your agent can counter all of the offers out there at one time to see if they can get you better terms, the closing date that you want, a higher price, whatever it might be that is going to benefit you as the seller. Your agent can potentially, make that happen. Is it more work on our hand? Yeah. But if it nets you an extra 2 to 5 grand or 10 grand, would you want that? Would you want to ask your agent to do that for you? Can we counter all these?
Yeah, yeah, and unfortunately, I'm glad I got to speak of a positive instance, because I think we focus a lot on what the negative side of it is. And don't let agents, this is why I think you gotta ask really about the communication and negotiation process, because what agents will come back and when we have a negative situation like that, is just say, well, that's what my seller wanted. I call BS. Because if you explain the benefits of very thoroughly going through negotiations and to entertain any possible thing and asking those buyer agents when you get if you have 10 offers, there's usually going to be a handful, 2 to 3 to maybe a handful that are super, super close,
Right.
where you're really splitting hairs. And that's where taking the time, just not jump at it. Don't be afraid to make a buyer that's going to walk away. That's not your buyer anyway. Because if they're not motivated to get the house, they're probably not motivated to work through maybe some inspections and some contingency stuff as much as a buyer that really wants the house.
Yeah. No, I agree.
So I think you got to explain to your sellers that too, that let's maybe go the extra mile. That might take an extra day. Because we're gonna work with those buyers and buyer agents that really are valuing and want this property. I think those are important things and then that comes through communication from the beginning.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So, let's tie these all together. Questions to ask your agent that you're interviewing. 1, marketing. How are they going to market your home?
Yep.
2, communication. How are we communicating with you as the seller on a daily basis? How are we communicating about showings, feedback, things like that? 3 is how did you come to that price? What tools and what systems did you use to come up with that price point to sell my house? 4 is what is the process once we go live? What do I need to do? And then finally 5 is how are you as an agent going to handle offers, multiple offers, presenting the offers and things like that. I think those are 5 really good. I mean, there's hundreds of other questions we can ask agents today, like, what's your track record? How many days on market? What's things like that. What's your team going to do for me? A whole list of things.
Yeah.
But I think we just narrowed down 5 great questions to ask your agent if you're thinking about listing your home today. Now, can we do that for you? Hell yeah, we can. Will we do it and set the expectations? I think so.
I think we do, our entire team does a really good job with the expectations. It's helped in a couple instances where things have come up with sellers and they get frustrated, but then we're able to say, well, remember, we had this conversation about this exact
Situation, yeah.
it comes up a lot with price, because prices, one of the things I always tell sellers is, this is what I think. Here's my 3 pricing strategies, or 4 if you're Vince or whatever. But you're like, here's my pricing strategies. What's, here's your pricing strategies. What, just being able to convey the fact that at the end of the day, it's the market. And who is the market? The market are buyers.
Buyers, yeah.
That's who determines what your house is going to sell for. We could have the highest of opinion. I follow this sometimes. If I really like a house, I probably get caught up in like, well, yeah, I think it's worth 600,000 when maybe it is only worth 570 to the majority of the market. We can get sucked into that too. But that's why you got to convey that, like, hey, and I always make sure to mention, I can think whatever, I can justify it, I can find the comps to justify it. But at the end of the day, it's the market that's going to determine it.
Yep. Yeah, so true. So that's it for today, guys. This is Vince Devall with Eagle Homes, powered by Caldwell Banker, and we'll see you next week.
And I'm Brad Brewer, with also Caldwell Banker on the Eagle Homes team. I guess we'll see you next week, and hopefully we'll have another guest. We love our guests.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Have a great day. Bye.